The inauguration of Donald Trump is over. He is now officially the 45th president of these United States. This election was one hell of a circus, filled with lies, accusations, leaked documents, all kinds of secrets being exposed and secrets being kept. It was fraught with accusations of hacking, pizza parties, allegiances to Wall Street. But how did the inauguration itself go? Trump's inauguration welcome concert was a total disaster. There was extraordinary difficulty in finding anyone who would perform for the incoming president. The headlines ended up being Three Doors Down and Toby Keith. From beginning to end, this somber cloud hovering over the incoming administration, this impossible to book concert, and really America stifled the music. Hardly the pomp and circumstance you'd expect from such an occasion. Certainly it was hardly the spectacle that a man who fancies himself the greatest showman on earth would be proud to produce. Even before the inauguration began, it was confronted by the J20 protests. It was one of the largest protests to an incoming president in history. As the day went on, increasingly larger numbers of people attended the protest. One thing that I found was really interesting was the opening prayer to the entire ceremony. Listening to the holy people talk about all the things that make a great leader. God, give us the strength. He who shows mercy will be shown mercy by God. And then it tended to just had this whole description of what a leader should be. And it was interesting to note that Donald Trump didn't have any of those attributes. It was completely unlike him. Everything that was being said could not be used to describe Donald Trump, and it was just so surreal to watch. It also seems strange to me, possibly because I'm an outsider, I'm not an American, but to see a state event be led by a prayer. I thought separation of church and state was, one of those really important things, one of the big parts of American society. But yet here we see, religious leaders having so much of a say during the actual event itself, and they got frankly more airtime than the incoming president actually did. At times throughout the event, Obama held his eyes closed. It almost looked as though he was just wishing the whole ceremony was over. Black Lives Matter occupied one of the checkpoints, attempting to prevent people from entering the event. Protesters chanted that the checkpoint had been closed.
This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed. This checkpoint is closed.
Of course, the whole ceremony did not go off without some controversy. RT America's Alexander Rubinstein was arrested during covering the protests in McPherson Square in Washington, D.C. He was in the crowd talking to people there, why are you here protesting today? Just basically doing a general journalist job when the police encircled a group of people. He was taken into custody even though he had shown the police his press credentials. And I don't think this was a coincidence or an accident either. I think this is part of a continuing attack against RT America. But it's been to watch his whole speech, to watch him go on about how he cares about working people and that he's going to make things better for them, and they were sold out by their leaders and all that. It just showed how completely bloody gullible so many of the American people are. Trump is lying so much, and it is so obvious. He doesn't care about working people. He railed on against Wall Street. Now, Wall Street did this, Wall Street did that, well, taking a few subtle digs at Jewish people, very underhanded ones, very sneaky ones, and then only to turn around and have so many Wall Street bankers placed right inside of his own administration. It's just shocking to me. And I love the whole rhetoric of the speech. And the speech was nothing but rhetoric. There was nothing really of substance there. Usually inauguration speeches don't contain much beyond rhetoric anyway. He was talking about how everybody is of one heart, regardless of race, disability, gender identity, all that. Talking about how everybody was of one heart and that America could be strong. Nothing could be further from the truth. Like, this is one of the most divisive elections in U.S. history. This was almost as bad as Bush and Al Gore. I mean, it was more so. It was even more divisive. The people who voted for Trump and the people who voted for Hillary Clinton couldn't have had any more completely different viewpoints. Although, in truth, both candidates were very much the same, in my opinion. But the divide was so massive. And yet here he is saying how America is of one heart and one group of people. And it's frankly completely untrue. And it's a bit baffling to me to even see that. And one of the points he was making about restoring the economy, how he was going to bring America's wealth back. You know, maybe I'm a bit confused, but I could have sworn that the United States was one of the wealthiest countries in the world. The wealthiest country in the world. And I love this idea that somehow wealth has been leaving America and going to somebody else. I mean, it just completely denies the existence of imperialism. America steals the wealth of so many other countries, invades them, destroys them, steals their resources, opens up their markets to their products, etc. But for Trump to just stand there and say somehow America's wealth was stolen by somebody else is completely ridiculous. Even we can even go back and see that the United States is founded on stolen wealth, stolen land, and stolen labor from the Native genocide and the entire history of the slave trade. It's mind-boggling to me to hear this, how America is somehow the victim in the world, when actually it's the greatest perpetrator of violence and theft. You can mention all kinds of countries that have been invaded by the United States. And this is frankly just completely ridiculous. His whole thing was about how America first. We're going to make America the most important thing. Everything's going to be done for America, implying that that's not already how it works. To be more accurate, we would say that the American capitalist class has always been placed first. That would be a much more accurate thing to say. But to simply be Trump and claim that America has put some other country first is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this is complete and utter nonsense. And then he says he's going to maintain traditional relationships. We're still going to have good relationships with countries, but everything is going to be about how America is first. Well, that's going to make trade very difficult. Economics is so much more complicated. That foreign trade is so much more complicated than just simply screaming how America is first. If everything you're based on is about screwing the other guy, then you're not going to have friendly relations. I mean, it's a whole total mess, because he's not really saying anything. He's just giving lofty words that his supporters want to hear and will take without question, without any real critical thought whatsoever. I mean, such a mentality is destructive. It can't build good relations, as he's saying. And I thought it was so astounding when he uttered the words, "When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice. We are all Americans, we are all patriots," etc. Now, might I add that, or rather counter with, the most patriotic times in U.S. history have been the most prejudiced. Couldn't we say the same thing of the Civil War? Or perhaps under the liberal darling FDR, the great patriotism of everybody coming together in America to throw a portion of its own population into race-based concentration camps. This idea that somehow patriotism overcomes racism or all other divides in society is frankly ridiculous. From a Marxist standpoint, this is outright laughable. The idea that contradictions can simply be overcome by some kind of rigid national identity that is based upon so many divisions. So one of those primary divisions being the divide between capital and labor, that contradictory and antagonistic relationship. But to say that you can be of one whole mind based on a system that is riddled with internal contradiction, that is riddled with so much strife, it is astoundingly ignorant. Now, I don't expect Donald Trump to understand Marxist theory, but when we look at what he has said, it's frankly insane. Every battle cry for race has been about patriotism. Look at National Socialists. Isn't that like their whole thing? Like patriotism of their country against the corrupting influence of other races? I mean, it is such a nonsense statement that he made that it really blows my mind. But isn't this the logical outcome of an election that was filled with so much fraud, so many scams, so many leaked documents, so many accusations being thrown at people, some of them to the realm of complete utter insanity? Some of the most horrible things you can accuse somebody of was done without any evidence whatsoever. The whole Pizzagate thing was frankly facetious. And the rest of us in the world, those of us outside the United States, we really stood by in this election, shaking our heads, wondering, what the hell is going on? This isn't even an election. It's a media circus. And media circus is the best way to describe this entire election. It has just been something that has been about entertainment and not even about choosing a person to run the country. But for now, Donald Trump is the 45th president of the United States, a president that has gone back on his word multiple times before he had even taken office, despite his seeming antagonistic attitude towards Wall Street has put many Wall Street people into positions of power. He has already gone back on so many ideas, like claiming that he was going to make Mexico pay for the wall, but is now will be asking Congress to do it. To me, I find Donald Trump to be largely an unknown, because we can't really say for certain what he is and what he isn't going to do, because he's not like a regular politician. He is a politician, no doubt, but he is not like a regular politician. He can't be seen in the same context as someone like Obama or George Bush or someone like that. It's frankly ridiculous. He's a very different kind of person. He comes from a very different background, and his behavior is completely different than any other president that we've ever seen. This is one of those situations more than ever where we're going to have to sit back and see what happens. But we already know a lot of his promises just can't be fulfilled. One cannot simply bring all the jobs back like that. Like, that's not how economics works. That's not how foreign trade works. This would require a massive rebuilding of industrial infrastructure, etc. Things that I've covered under videos before, so I would only be repeating myself here. But for now, for what it's worth, Donald Trump, the racist, xenophobic, very poor quality human being, is now a leader of a racist, xenophobic, horrible, low quality country of the United States. At times like this, we often hear the phrase, God bless America. And I think maybe more appropriately, we might want to say, God help America, because the Creator may be the only person left who can possibly help it. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.